Sweden, a fantastic country, the country of free, the country of liberty, the country of everything you could think of, everything positive. Ever since I was a kid, I do remember that Sweden was my home. That's the only thing I had in my mind. I was still the happy kid who couldn't turn away from whatever I could see. I maybe looked different from others, but I was still happy. The country were always a part of me, I was thinking. Every children I was playing with, every adult I interact with, every people I literally had the courage to close to. There was nothing wrong. Everything was just positive. We always talk about the Swedish culture. There was nothing else but Swedish culture as we had in our head. 1988, as I remember, for once, sitting in my parents' laps, talking about how I was born and so on. It was a wonderful thing. The only thing I had in my mind was, oh yeah, am I going to grow up? Am I going to do as any kid would do? Yes, of course. That's exactly what my parents said. Did they even talk about their culture and so on? No. It was only to submit whatever existed in nation. They didn't have to talk about their culture. They rather were happy, whatever happened here in Sweden. That was what I knew. So every time I remember, there were times that I also were walking in school. Before that, I was in the daycare. It was wonderful in this case, that, as I can say, as a child. It was a dream, everything. Sure, I made mistakes, like this part of about being a boy and so on, even though I was very different from other boys. I didn't think like a real boy. I was a little more neutral in this case. Neutral as a child in this case. But that didn't matter. Whatever I was as a child, that was enough. I didn't need to act like a real boy. And no, I didn't act like a girl. Everything was just fine. By the time I started to when I was actually in my first period in school, I was 7 years. Welcome to the 90s. And of course, you had to expose more of your, well, not manhood exactly, more like a boyhood or something I can call, the way any boys can describe. But in the same time, I didn't think so much. But equality were there still. But it depended on different people in this case. I could say it was just okay when I was growing up. When I was just 7 years. 8 years I had a lot of challenge. There were a bunch of things who actually were my time as a child. Not enough for what I thought was actually true, although I understand the part that I have to understand. The way you have to be accepted. a way as any teacher would actually accept. The way you should never expose yourself, but still submit to that will. I didn't have any problem at all, except there are things sometimes when people try to make you think otherwise, even if you self try to do something right. Have I done something wrong? Well, maybe. Of course, only small doses any child would do. But I never did any crime. I didn't kill anyone. I didn't hit anyone. I didn't hurt anyone. If I'm going to hurt someone, then it would be rather between interactions. Yes, that's the only thing I have committed. Interaction. That's the only thing. It could be like that, as any child would do when you disagree with someone, or maybe have said something, as any child can do. And of course a teacher can come around and talk. But of course I have rather face all kind of thing as any teacher wouldn't tolerate, or better. That depends which generation each and anyone are from. And I understand. Not everybody can tolerate that part. So I dealt with that hardship for over 3 years. Could be a change after that? Well, everything is possible. When I was 10 years, after that part, before I was supposed to become 11 years, for once I had one teacher who understood me well. She was the only one in this case, as I appreciate so many times. You could interact with her whenever you wanted. You could talk with her whenever you wanted. So yeah, perhaps to say she had been very nice so long I can remember. Sure, I had some problem with her, but not much myself. What I mean is, she was very kind and very understandable, and I was very happy that she, on the other hand, could interact with me however she wanted as much I wanted. Anything was neutral. I was glad for that. So after she was left the high school in this case, when I was just 15 years old, because she was diagnosed with diabetes type 1. She needed to take injection after injection. That's what I remember. But that wasn't the reason to why she left. She left only because someone else were fighting her all the time, and of course it took on her health so long I can remember. She gave up. So many of us who actually loved her felt sad that she had to leave. I mean, for 6 years, she had been around us. And she was the reason to why we kept fight. She was the reason to why we could handle our lives. Of course, I'm still happy for her because I met her few times, even if I haven't met her for a long time now, even if I had to deal with the issue I did since 2017 when my parent did snitch about my mistake since 2017. Yes, so of course I was ashamed, but that's not the important now. Okay, over my years, as I remember, I grew up. For once, oh yeah, we had a new teacher who actually took over. Well, he was cool, no problem at all. He was always there for us as well. He was learning us every basic thing we needed to do and evolve our knowledge and so on. So yes, I was very happy too, even if I miss our old teacher. Okay, after that, I was graduate in the high school and went to the college. Of course, I had a hardship that time myself, although I saw everything positive, no matter what. But I wasn't just like any teenager in this case. I skipped this teenage behavior and was still that child from the past, and in same time I took a next level to act like an adult. So that part, except that I didn't have any, how should I say, I didn't show that I had opinions, rather neutral in it. That's how I interacted with everybody in this case. Although I could sometimes face some people who literally think that I was a dork or something. But many of them, I did really had a great contact with them. No problem at all. I was happy. Thank you. That's all I could say. But, of course, I saw a lot of dark thing in my shit. Meaning, you couldn't expect that everything would be lovey-dovey whatever. No. There are sometimes problems that you have to see with your own eyes. Something as many adults would actually talk, although we understand that the newer generation, at least those who haven't retired, the Generation X, the Millenniums, the Gen Z, we maybe took a darker path compared to the older generation, but that didn't mean that we didn't like it. Rather, try to understand the part why we took it maybe. Meaning, we are maybe not so thoughtful when it comes to the culture we maybe lived in and so on. But still, I was the one who sworn to the culture itself. I was loyal to the nation. So, yeah, what's the problem with that? I didn't see any problem to be loyal to the nation at all. So, all I did was just focus on my task, and that's to get my grades and anything else. Learn new things I never learned, and so on. But tragic things started to happen. A lot of things. The death of my grandpa, my dad's health increase. Oh, God damn it. And of course, my dad's death. Everything was too much. Sure, I didn't have any easy time when I was live at home, even if I know that my mom and dad was separated, which have nothing with my concentration, no. It have only with the relationship I had to them in the past. So yeah, it was hard. And then expectations, of course. Taking driving license in early time. But I had too much to do. I had both school and the other part. So how could I deal with that? Except, yes, I know my cousins and all of those others who have a driving license because they prioritize it. But I needed to focus only on one thing. Take my grade and make sure that I can handle everything. But of course, there were a lot of things in my mind. I couldn't focus. And of course, I faced a lot of bullshit. Teachers who started to talk behind my back. Some of them will maybe think that I am sick. Other people just didn't tolerate this smiling face of myself. They rather see me as a sick bastard. What exactly am I here? Maybe it's just sick. Smiling, being a positive person and smiling at the same time doesn't count as normal for some people. So of course I have dealt with all this kind of talking behind back, someone's back. Even for teachers, of course. God damn it. Of course I was hurt. I used to go alone for some times to just reflect over my minds. Of course I was an empath early when I was younger. That's because I actually faced a lot of hardship. But not only that. Even if I did think kindly about people, but sometimes I felt so angry for those who betrayed me. Was I a traitor myself? Not really. Except when it comes to the smaller things, when you have to either be honest to your friends that you could actually play with them or go with them or just have a good time with them. But sometimes there is rulings when it comes to the parents who always saying you have to prioritize on your study and so on, having a grade and so on, which is normal for every parent. Not everybody have the same mindset that you are free. No, of course not. I could say two things when I was young. Being someone isn't always simple when you live at home and just have to submit sometimes to the ruling and so on. But that's not it. I was still following everything. I didn't make any troubles, I didn't create troubles and so on. I was happy for that. But why am I still bothering about everything the people talking about my behinds? What I know was that I didn't want to expose what kind of culture I belonged to. I was happy by saying I'm just a Swedish individual or citizen who just do my thing. I will always pay my loyalty to the country and so on. Sure, sometimes I have spoken about my real culture and my own background. I just told them, one of them, that I have a Canadian background and a France and a culture from France as well. But what about those other cultures? Again, Both my mom and dad are actually the half of whatever they sang. Meaning, for example, my dad, his mother, my grandma are actually from Canada. But my granddad, well, that's a secret. I don't want to talk about that. Not yet. Okay, what about my mother? Well, her dad, my granddad, are from France. But what about my grandma, my mom's mother? Well, that's also a secret because I refuse to reveal it. Not yet. Perhaps one day. Okay. So over the years, even if I didn't graduate in college after my dad's death, of course I had a lot of things in my head. I couldn't concentrate myself, so of course I didn't continue. I failed, so I started to work, of course, all because I didn't want my mom to take care of me because of the hardship. Yes, I needed to be more independent in this case, and that's what I did. But there was one problem. After I started to work, of course, I had my idea that I have to shut up about my culture, never talk about that, and so on. Only swear my loyalty to the nation and show that I am Swedish enough to never talk about my background at all. Yes, I didn't expose myself. I was telling as anyone. Of course, I was born, but there was one problem. For all those years, even if I was born in Sweden, I didn't count as a Swedish child. It took 4 years before I was actually known as a Swedish child. But that was because the system didn't accept immigrant parents. I mean, if you have two immigrant parents and a child is born in Sweden, neither of us did counts as Swedish at all. So of course, my parents did everything to make sure that I always will think like a Swedish child. Never pay attention to other cultures but Sweden. That's the loyalty. The problem was that we never changed our names into Swedish name. I have a Canadian name myself. But what about our religion? That's a secret too. It doesn't matter if I say I am a Christian, I am a Jewish, or I am a Muslim, or Hindu. That's the only thing I can say. But why can't I just say maybe I am a Buddhist? Well, here's the thing. I think when it comes to Buddhism, they are more peaceful compared to other religion. But back then I remember as a child that they talked about if you are born in Sweden, you have to follow every strict law, that you have to conform to Christianity, you have to have a Swedish name, and you have to follow everything. That was back in the 90s as I remember. But that laws have always been there. It was only in year 2000 they abandoned that part to make sure that everybody can choose so long they don't create any catastrophic idea. Although we know exactly what Islam might do, but in the same time, that's not the problem. The problem is the preacher itself in Islam who may be telling otherwise to force everybody to think in a conservative way, why there is a bunch of other Muslims from different sides. For example, we know already about the secularism and ex-Muslims and Muslims for liberty who fear those other groups from the conservative side and the extremist side, which I know already. But they are not my concern yet, except that some people might ask, what culture and what religion do I belong to? Again, neither of them have anything with me to do. But some of them have maybe some idea that I am a Muslim. How do they know? They don't know if I am a Muslim. They don't know if I am a Christian. They don't know if I am a Jewish. How can they tell? By just watching? No way. No way. So, of course, the only thing I knew was that so long I don't expose my culture, then of course I'm okay. I kept being Swedish as all the time, swore my loyalty to the nation, being accepted as one. Have I ever turned back to the nation? No, of course not. No matter how many times, it doesn't matter how I live. It doesn't matter how I actually live under. It doesn't matter if I have a good time or bad time. No matter how many times I may be facing bad terms or someone who doesn't like me and so on, I still accepted everything. I do. I still do. Or still did. Am I still accepting today? Yes. Although it is hard. It is. But there have been many things were actually happening over my years. 2023, when they started to change the law, the time my aunt, who actually we're here since 2014, started to work, she was also paying her loyalty to the nation. She wanted to be independent, a woman who just wanted to work, a woman who wanted to be something bigger, the woman who would do anything to make sure that she could achieve everything. It was hard, there she came from, but she was the only one of all my relatives who wanted to achieve something bigger. She wanted to be educated. She wanted to be good enough for this nation. Do something. Of course, she was working, she was paying taxes, everything. The only thing she missed was her paper. But of course, the immigration agency, the border, did at least allow her to just work. We could talk about the paper later. Keep working and you can handle it later. That's what it was. The fun fact is that every woman has done that. They have sworn the loyalty to the nation, and even if there is no one who maybe did it, most of them did prioritize by working and working and working, go on education and so on, get the degrees, and only hopefully that they would be accepted. What about men? Well, that could be from yes to no. That depends from each and anyone. You either educate or just working. But there were some of them, especially boys, who could be a catastrophe for the nation compared to any other gender. Yet everybody faced this bullshit that they couldn't be anything but a scam in some people's eyes. Sometimes some people was thinking there's a lot of immigrants here. But was it something I knew was that's not the problem. The immigrant wasn't the problem. The problem was the low conjuncture and any other things. Like the elites who hire less people, CEOs who hire less people into work. It took time for me to even think about that, but yeah, it did. Okay, before I talk about that, how about this? Whatever happens to me and all those years I have submit to the country, how do I feel? That's the question I should ask myself. Am I feeling happy or do I feeling deceived? Well, the truth is, it's hard to answer that question. For all those years, I kept myself, keep swearing the loyalty to the nation, yet facing a lot of shit, hardship, and so on. I don't say I have done that every time, no. I sometimes had a lot of people who were kind and so on, so I was happy. But it was harder to deal with those who didn't tolerate me. Either just my personality or just me in the random, or maybe my image was not enough. And of course I can't change the image myself since my mom forced me to just dress like a normal person as any materialist, even if she wasn't rich, yet a materialist who just wanted me to fit into the crowd. But again, we're living in 2000. We are not in the 90s anymore, as I had in my mind. I just wanted to be free that time, but no, of course not. But I understand her in this case, which is difficult to even make a choice, even if I could just take my favorite image. But I couldn't. It's better to be something you have to accept. So the time I started to have doubts about the nation itself, of course, I was still loyal to the nation, which I'm still today. But I was worried. 2023, when everything started to be worse. But of course it was worse already in the past. People started to think that I'm maybe just an immigrant. The time when people started to turn everybody against each other. But the funny fact is, it was worse when other politics and even influencers from the right-wing sides, perhaps to say not all right-wings thinking the same, some of them are very neutral, but some of them were very harsh towards immigration. I mean, I can say one thing. My dad did came here since 80s. My mom were adopted since 70s. But did at least meet some of the people, at least her dad, my granddad in this case, and did remember where she would come from in the past. Of course, it was hard, but yeah. But okay, enough about that. What I do remember, it was very hard for them as well, but they did what they could. And that exactly made themselves Swedish enough. Me, I was born here. So was my siblings. Yet it was hard enough to be accepted. Maybe it was different for those who were born in the Gen Z, but we, the millenniums, it was much more harder for us. It was never easy at all to begin with. So my only thing is, should I keep sworn my loyalty to the nation? Well, the truth is, yes. I don't see anything wrong to swear my loyalty to the nation as much as I can swear my loyalty to the flag. My only question is, should I continue with few of them? Perhaps to say, when it comes to the culture, of course I'm going to continue. But there's only one thing I maybe turn down. And that's the celebration of the Swedish nation, the July 6th. Well, as you can see in this picture, you see already the Prime Minister, the same guy who established the law that everybody who doesn't have any paper shall be deported, even for those who did work, paying taxes and so on. The same guy who turned everybody against each other. The same guy who kept talk about immigrants like enemies. The same guy who turned everybody, any individual, towards each other. Yet no one figured it had nothing with what background or culture you belong to, rather what class you belong to. This guy who were actually living as the middle class, and I don't say just middle class, rather the middle class when he was a young kid. That's the only information I have for him now. But he still lived. I don't say he belonged to the middle class anymore. Maybe to the higher middle class or the high class, the overclass, I guess. I don't know how much pay he gets, but that's not the idea. The idea is that every people who earn more are worthy respect in his case. So yeah, for some reason, he is a part of the elites, even if he is the Prime Minister. But here's the thing. If you think that Sweden is the only thing who doesn't take any payments when it comes to those oligarchy or any corporation or elites, then you are super wrong. Any elites are still controlling every party, include Swedish Democrats. In the past, Swedish Democrat didn't get any payment except for the citizens. Yes, but over the story, the time, some elite started to mingle with them. And of course, do I have any evidence? No, of course not. But you can maybe read few things that every elite are still controlling every party, no matter what. Sure, we could understand there is a problem when it comes to the immigrant size, and especially for those who live in a conservative size, regardless if they are Christians, Jewish, or Muslim. Although we know exactly that many Muslims, depending on which size, the conservatives and the extremists, and those who swore the loyalty to the Sharia law, or maybe the problem by the rest of the Muslim community facing the bullshit they have to endorse. Even those who might call themselves the Dawa folks, who create a lot of bullshit. Again, what about those who actually work hard, swore their loyalty to the nation, doesn't change the culture? They face the same shit for those who try to change the narrative here. Okay, but what about us? Again, no one can see if we are Christians, Muslims, or Jewish. I don't care. I don't care what I belong to. What I care about is that I swore my loyalty, yet I have to face a lot of bullshit from some other individuals, as this man has changed everybody's minds. But he is not the only one. But yes, he is the biggest one who has done that. He is even the bigger crook compared to Jimmy Åkesson. Ulf Christensen is the biggest crook. The crook who actually did everything to make it hard for everybody to live. Deport innocent people while those who commit crime are still here. That's number one in his case. Number two, he turned every individual against each other, whether they are the poor class, working class, or lower middle class. All those three have turned against each other as well. Yet, we only hear about this particular people are committing a crime and so on, and now they all are fighting. This man is not honest. He never admit his wrongdoing. He won't, because this is his creation. This very man who still destroyed the nation itself, turning it against each other. Everything. So of course it has been hard to live under this nation because of this man. So of course I'm super angry when it comes to him. He was my first enemy of all politics. Am I going to kill him? No, of course not. I am not a killer. No. But he will still remain my fucking enemy. Yes, but he is not my only enemy. I could say one thing, for example, A$AP Rocky, Donald Trump, some of others I know are my enemies. I wouldn't have them as an enemy without reason, but there is a big reason I have them as an enemy. Yes, I will tell you later in another clip, but this clip is about how I feel as a part of Swedish yet not accepted. It became much more harder. I myself are avoiding a lot of people, especially when it comes to women's self. Again, even if I don't look so Swedish myself, although I still sworn my loyalty. I have still a lot of flags, a lot of stuff. But that doesn't make yourself Swedish at all. No. You're rather being a Swedish guy when you're actually accepting everything in the nation. Yes, I have done that, but that's not enough. And that's why I keep myself in the law and make sure that I don't do any harm or any wrongdoing or whatever. But this crook are still the one who come up with ridiculous law. For example, today, people who can't pay their bills or debts, who will be taken by a debt collector or some agency who work with debt, who will strip everything until people just going throughout from from their home to the street. And those who are immigrants getting deported. Yes. He couldn't care less how long each and anyone had lived here. Everybody are just a number for his sake. The way he persecutes any people who actually live here, even if we understand that many things like crimes and so on will actually happen here in nation, although he always pursue by saying that kind of cause is because of immigrants. Again, he couldn't care less by thinking that had nothing with the idea to do just because you're an immigrant. Rather, that cause is by some individuals who couldn't care less but being something bigger in a wrong way. Although we understand the past when the moderates wanted to make sure that any company could be independent, yet most of those CEOs could still manipulate the system by saying, well, we don't have enough with money and so on, so we don't hire a lot of people. No, we have to hire low people in the companies and so on, so we could earn so much money, which every company did. It was a normal thing. And that's why no one could get jobs. And that's why everybody started to turn against each other by saying, this group have a lot of jobs. We don't have any job. They're stealing our job and so on. Again, the politics start to turn everybody against each other without the knowledge. But instead for saying, well, some people have luck, but I don't have any luck. I know how it was because I was still looking for a job when I was younger. I didn't get one. My brother got one. He had his money as he could use however he wanted. Even if he did help my mom, fine, that's great. But he could go anywhere he wanted. Me, I couldn't go anywhere. I was still trapped in the city. I didn't do anything, but I did accept everything. Exactly, even if I didn't have anything. Yet, I was the one who actually helped my aunt, one of them, as I sacrificed it so fucking many times. One of them who actually had lived here in Sweden so long, I can remember. But the other one who came in 2014 is the one who took responsibility for herself. She was the most independent woman I ever met. Sure, my mom were independent herself as well, but she was the first relative I saw who fought for independency. No help, no cry for anything at all. I was happy that she, on the other hand, wears some kind of face everybody could just add up to. Something I, on the other hand, could be very happy to see. The one who fought for equality as much she wanted to be accepted for the nation. Yet, we have those two dumbasses, both Jimmy Åkesson and Ulf Kristersson. But why am I still bothering when it comes to Jimmy Åkesson? Well, here's the thing. Everybody had a history with Jimmy Åkesson. Sure, he was very tough. He was very anti-immigrant in the past. But since 2010, I started to see a shift from his own size. He started to tone down his word against immigrants and started to be more friendly. It was a very surprise in my mind, and I was thinking, okay, now this man seems to be more tolerant. What's happening? For all those 4 years, I never have seen that kind of kindness, that kind of gentle tone. And that showed me that even right wings doesn't have to be different from whatever each and any politic from different, the different way each and anyone thinking, whether they are right wing or left wing. So of course, again, whether you are a right wing or left wing, your opinion matters, but not everybody think the same. But for some reason, my reason on the other hand was that I started to like Jimmy Åkesson for some reason. A symbol of the right wing with a better tone who started to understand the nation instead for just persecute everybody like this group are so violent, we should get them out from the country. No. Instead, he started to reason with people, started to knowing people. If he ever shaked someone's hands, that didn't matter at all. For some reason, I did like this person, this new person, the new version of Jimmy Åkesson. But if I start to like his party, well, that depends. That depends what he actually standed for. And I start to think, okay, maybe he have changed totally. Maybe that's a new beginning. Maybe we all could come together for once. Maybe the right wing and left wing can shake hands. That was my take. But for some reason, that was too short. And everybody started to turn again. So around 2015, I do remember a time when it came to this violent crime in Stockholm. Of course, his words started to turn down. But I had no hatred towards Jimmy Åkesson. Not even in the beginning when he was very violent in his word in the past. But for some reason I started to tolerate this guy more and more. And even if he was against the immigrants or whatever, I didn't turn him down. Not so much. But I started to dislike the word he started, although I was just silent and was thinking, okay, maybe there is a reason that we have to talk with each other. But over the years, it had been harder and harder to just tolerate his word, because that's exactly the same thing as some of the individuals did use when it came to me. even if they couldn't see if I were Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, or what kind of country I came from. Sure, I was mentioned that I have a Canadian background, that's all. Could I even spoke about that? And before you're actually asking, what is your color and so on, fuck you, I ain't going to tell anything about my color. You can imagine yourself. Whether you see me, okay, how can people see me and why do they ask me and so on? I mean, again, I could be just a South European, I could be an Eastern myself, I could be an Asian, I could be an Australian, I could be an African, I could be an American, I could be a South American, but that doesn't matter. The point is, I am tired if we're going to talk about color and so on, blah blah blah. That's not the narrative in my case, no. But it is a topic everybody actually talk about today, and I'm tired of it. So I rather say you can guess what I am, but you can't make up, because you don't know exactly what fucking background I belong to. No, I just told you that I have a part of the Canadian and the France, but I won't expose the third and fourth. No, I won't. But it had been hard time for me, even if I still accepting everybody, even if I liking everybody, and that's my own opinion. Yes, I like everybody. But the only thing who still matters is the tone against me. Everything I have to endorse, even if I don't like it. I have to deal with this bullshit so many times. Every shit I have gone through ever since I was a kid, I couldn't focus. I could only drain in this thing. The thing of hatred. Sure, I have a bunch of hatred, but not this part of hatred. I have no hatred towards people just because of their background or their color or whatever. No, I don't have that. I have never cared that part. But I do remember that I have been a bunch of facing as I have faced, but I didn't feel any hatred towards that. I did allow them to have their own opinion. All I have to do is show my loyalty to the nation, that's all. And show that I am a part of Sweden. Even show that I still sworn to the flag all the time, every time. I have not changed my opinion since then. Yet, every moment makes it much more harder to even realize, should I even be here in Sweden? Should I even live here in Sweden? Wouldn't it just be better if I just moved to another nation, even if that means that I will still face a lot of bullshit? I don't know. It makes harder for every minute to be accepted. Everything you sacrificed, everything you did to be a part of the nation, yet you're not accepted as one. It's going to be much more harder because of those two. Because of those two are unfamiliar with any other culture. Yet you do anything to sworn and kiss asses every day. Even if you could lay some of your opinions, yet you have to still kiss that part every time to be a part of Sweden. And that's exactly what I have to endorse every time. So I don't know. I guess my mentally part of myself would just want to leave the citizens. Just live somewhere that I could just feel free. The only side who can make me free is actually the nature itself. That's the only thing who give me that kind of freedom. I am an empath, have always been an empath. But it's hard to even live among humans. I don't feel I want to be a part of human. I rather want to be a part of the nature, among animals. That's what I feel free. No judgment. Even if they will treat me as an enemy, but I accepting that. Because being a human is just to be a parasite. A parasite who just came from nowhere. Yet we were accepted by Mother Nature and Mother Gaia, which I can still love, although my hatred towards this part, to be a human. A human. For what reason? To face more hatred? To just hear about the part being an immigrant? Although I'm not an immigrant, I was born here, yet I am still treated as an immigrant. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay. But it's hard to even deal with this issue so many times that you have to start all over again. Of course I understand that most of those people are focusing on what's happening in the big towns like Stockholm or Göteborg or whatever I should pronounce it, or Malmö, in Skåne maybe, or Landskrona. God damn it, everything I have to deal with, the issue, very issue. I still saying that I won't even expose my fucking religion. Whether I am a Christian, Jewish, or Muslim, or a Hindu, or whatever you could think of. It's hard. Again, we have to endorse that part. So of course it's making much more harder to even understand. And I, who actually have grown up and knowing what exactly happening here, yet I have to endorse every shit I have to go through now when those two are actually with each other. Tidöpartiet, the biggest virus of the politics. And that's why my hatred towards those two are legitimate. They have used their hatred towards us, everybody. And I don't talking about we as an immigrant, rather the working class, the poor class, and the lower middle class. They are the top folks. And yet we have to endorse their stupidity. Yes, it has been hard to be a part of a nation you have fought for so many years. And yet you have to endorse every shit. Every shit you fought for. I mean, I'm okay with people who humiliate me because of however I dress or however I act or my behavior ain't as their own level. Or I'm a dork, or I am a geek, or I am whatever shit I actually have to endorse. Yet I have to deal with this issue. Me, who actually did everything to make sure that I don't do anything wrong. Make sure that I don't go close towards women. And maybe changing ways in the nights to never go behind women or scare anyone or whatever shit they have to endorse. not even being a criminal or a killer or whatever. No. I'm okay with whatever shit I have to endorse, even if I can accept everything. Yes, I can. I may be a part of Canada. I may be part of the France. Yet, I myself, born in Sweden, have always seen myself as a Swedish guy. But I feel like sometimes I am an infidel when it comes to this country. It doesn't matter. I mean, never mind that I have actually lived here, yet being denied being a Swedish ever since birth. I was just a toddler. First I was just a baby, then a toddler. The time I were counted as a Swedish one, I was just 4 years. Those two didn't have to worry. But I can only say this. What about Jimmy Åkesson? Are he fully Swedish? No. He actually lived the same way I did, yet he counts as a Swedish, even if his other background is Kazakhstan. His mother, on the other hand, is from Kazakhstan, but I don't say it myself, because it doesn't matter where she is from. She is still Swedish for me. As much my mom, who also are from France, are actually Swedish in my case. But again, that's the thing. What could I say? I could only say this. Good job, dumbasses. You made it hard for ourselves. You're my two enemies now. What should I say? You have been my enemies for over 3 years. Ever since my aunt left. Ever since my aunt were deported. That hard condition when she was taken. Even if she fought back, I know you should never fight back when it comes to police. Even if she never hurt anyone, yet she was hurt. And of course it was hard. But before she came back to the home country, she was deported to another country first. Never mind where she comes from. So of course I was worried about her. Calling her everywhere. It took over 10 days before I even heard about her, how her condition was, and so on. Luckily, the government in that country did send her back to the home country. It was a sad thing. She was everything. She lived here over 9 years. So of course I do remember Mashta that time. Oh man, if I could have visited her so many times. But my anger towards her boyfriend is the biggest thing I can actually still thinking of. I sacrificed every salary to make sure that I had a good lawyer who could protect her. But they only suck money. That's what they do. And then giving excuse that they can't do anything. So that was the part. I could have used this free lawyer we had. Maybe she could have an easy time. Maybe she could have a chance to speak out. Maybe she could have a chance to stay here in Sweden. Keep pursue everything she was doing. Keep working. Keep paying taxes. Go on school. Learn more Swedish as she did early. We did learn Swedish together when I was with her. But over the time she was with her boyfriend, only that time he was throwing out her. Then he started to regret everything what he did. All because she didn't work. All because she was fired. Again, the company's fault, not her fault. Yet we have to deal and endorse every shit. Thank you, both of you, Jimmy Åkesson and Ulf Christensen. My hatred towards you will still stand. The time I grow up, being an older senior, I still going to have my story outside, even if that means I have to still endorse every shit from both of you. Yes, I will. But mark my words, there will be a time when the poor class, working class, and the lower middle class will understand what both of you have done. I haven't forgot. I still have my mind, but I won't even turn myself against any race or anyone in different culture. No. I will keep pursue whatever I have in my fucking mind. I maybe keep going to endorse every shit and the hardship, but I ain't going to forget who I was and where I came from. And since I was born here yet never counted as one, I'm going to keep pursue my shit and make sure that I keep doing my shit. Paying taxes, working as ass of myself. Make sure that both of you one day going to face my eyes and you're going to tell me what did I do so wrong as you have turned everybody against each other. One day both of you are going to be exposing. That's my word to you, both of you. Yes. Anyway, that's all I want to say, people. Thank you for listening. Even if I am super sad over everything I actually have to endorse and everything I actually have lived under, I still thanking you for taking your time, and I hope one day that each and any of you will have a better time yourself, even if we have to face the hardship today because of those two. Anyway, have a nice day. Goodbye.